Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Dry Pink Dialogue. We are one day removed from Inter Miami's very frustrating 2-2 draw at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta against Atlanta United. Inter Miami goes up 1-0. They concede a goal. They go up 2-1 almost immediately, but they cannot hold out for the rest of the game. They give up the second goal, and they give up a number of chances late. And I think it left a sour taste in our mouth right after the game. But upon rewatching, I think we learned a lot. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to do a full game breakdown, the big moments, what went right, what went wrong. And of course, we'll give out some awards. As always, I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co host, Saur. How are you feeling today, my man?
Yeah, after rewatching the game, the taste became even more sour, right? It feels like a 2-2 loss than a 2-2 draw. I'm feeling good, man. We haven't mentioned this before, but I really like our intro. It's a nice intro.
Too, yeah.
Yeah, gets the mood going. I think it gets me in the right spirits. Not a great game. Lots to discuss about it, but we still didn't lose, and we're on course to securing that supporter shield position. So only way is up from here. I was very proud of the young boys who started the game yesterday. A few things didn't go our way, but I'm sure we're going to talk about that. And yeah, we have a lot of things to get into. So please kick us off.
Yeah, before we get into the game, I just want to mention a few things that have gone on in Inter Miami's world, starting with this article that was published by, just a mini article published by Tom Bogart this morning in his, not The Athletic, his new company, talking about the advanced analytics. And really, it was just a look at XG and how players are overperforming, how teams are overperforming. And Inter Miami was far and away the outlier in terms of their overperformance. Basically, the takeaway from that article was that Inter Miami, based on the expected output, should basically be about an even goal differential at 0, right? We're plus 24. So it is incredible overachievement. Large part of that due to how good Messi and Suárez are at finishing, right? They are far outperforming their XG because they are so elite in the box. And then also on the flip side, Callender, who's an exceptional shot stopper, keeping other teams under what they would be expected to get based on the advanced stats. But it sent me on a 45-minute long deep dive into Inter Miami's season-long advanced analytics to see how this team is actually performing. And I think it really opened my eyes. And I do not want to talk about it on this episode, but next week when we have the midweek off, we will deep dive into some of the advanced analytics and how they paint Inter Miami's season so far, especially of late, which I think is really interesting. And then also over the last 48 hours, we got the MLS roster designations. Earlier in the season, MLS, and I applaud them for doing this, showed true transparency by publishing every roster and who was a DP, who was a U22, who was TAM, et cetera, international roster slots, everything in that vein. They updated it, and Inter Miami's was updated with some interesting developments, including the last topic, which is Benjamin Cremaschi's new contract. He's now listed as a U22 DP. Benjamin Cremaschi gets a new contract, and I did think we should talk about that for a minute.
I want to go back to the point that you made about advanced analytics, and I want to preface what my part of the conversation is going to look like. I know here at Drive Pink Dialogue, we like to delve into the tactics side of things, into the numbers, the statistics, how the team is playing. But I'll be honest, man, sometimes I feel like these advanced analytics, these advanced statistics suck the soul out of football a little bit and ruin the mood. So I'm not going to think too much about it, but I know that's definitely a conversation worth having. But at the end of the day, football is a lot more than just statistics and data and numbers. And that's what's so beautiful about it. A team who might be, according to data analysts, absolutely performing under par ends up winning the Premier League like Leicester. So it is what it is. I'm sure we're going to have a conversation, but that's for another day. Benjamin Cremaschi. Interesting. U22 DP. That's a very interesting.
I'm sorry, Grandpa. Let's just hold off for a little bit and let's just stay in the 1990s.
I'm a Luddite. I will forever be against technology. I will forever be against advanced statistics. That for me is not what sports is about. Sports is about heart, and sports is about passion, and that's what matters. Okay, I'm a passion merchant, I'm a vibe merchant, and that's what drives me to support my team. So I don't care what Tom Bogart or anybody else says.
Um,
Exactly, Sean. Sean
you
here
know
says
what?
you can make stats say just about anything you want. It's not real maths. You know what, Sean? At this point, I don't even think maths is a real subject. Numbers, all made up. All made up. No.
I'm muting you for a few minutes because you're going way off topic. Uh, as we were about to talk about, Benjamin Cremaschi gets a new contract. He is now a U22 DP, big money through 2027, which I think only adds a year to his existing contract. Generally, the academy kids sign for 3 years plus an additional option or two options at the end. And so he was already under contract for that period of time if we activated the options, but he's going to get the pay rise and he deserves that. But also, I do think this is going to change his path to Europe, which I think is something that I was under the impression he was going to pursue over the next couple of years. I do wonder how this changes that calculus. But I think he deserves the contract, man. And speaking of your rant that you just went on, passion, merchants, and energy.
Absolutely, no, I'm kidding. No, dude, Cremaschi definitely deserves that. There was a conversation yesterday that the commentators were having about how some of the youngsters like Benjamin Cremaschi, David Ruiz, Noah Allen were forced to play a lot more than they would normally do last season. And instead of having a transitionary season where they're able to learn and get their feet under them, they were overplayed and had to perform a lot more and plug into the team a lot more than would be expected of youngsters. And they ended up saying that in this conversation, I think youngsters like Noah Allen and Cremaschi, this season is, again, a season for them to embed themselves into the team. And that's probably why they're not playing that much. Or that's the explanation that Tata Martino has given them. You have to manage their minutes. You have to, understand how the youngsters are able to find their feet. I disagree with that. I think they had a breakout season last season. And just because they were forced to play a lot more doesn't mean that this season they need to take a step back. I think some of the youngsters, especially Benjamin Cremaschi being one of them, should get a lot more minutes for this team than they are getting currently. I'm glad that he has received the backing of the support staff, the backing of the coaches, and received that upgrade in his contract. I'm sure he's going to play a very important role for Inter Miami going forward, the playoffs being the first important step to that. And yeah, you mentioned that his path to Europe changes a little bit, but selfishly, I'm not complaining because that means he might stay on with Inter Miami a little bit longer. And yes, he has a few things that he can develop in his game. So it'll be good to see how he evolves over the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, I actually think Tata Martino has done a really good job with Cremaschi. I disagree. I think that he played 2,600 minutes last year, and that was too many. I wanted to see him down at 1,500 to maybe 1,800. Him, Cremaschi, Ruiz, and Noah Allen are all sitting around that 1,000 mark. And so to me, that's a little less than I would have liked. But if they were at 1,200 right now, I would feel great. It's really Ian Frey is the one player that I felt hasn't played enough from those young guys. And I would have liked to see more because I think if he can get 1,000 minutes under his belt this year, that would be great for him. I don't think that's going to happen. He's only at about 400 right now. Anyways, Cremaschi, congratulations to Benha. He is, the golden boy for Inter Miami, the first and best, most impactful academy player to come through. And I think that will always have a special place in the heart of Inter Miami fans. And so if this means we get a little bit more of him, that's awesome. If this means that he gets to follow his dreams and live out his dreams, that's awesome. So, happy all around. Should we get into this game that was a classic battle between Jorge Thieler and Rob Valentino? Exactly how we thought it was going to go back in February or January when the schedule came out. A battle of assistant coaches, interims that are going head to head. And I think the coaching battle actually had an impact in this game, but not really until the second half. In the first half, Inter Miami gets off to, I think, a reasonable start, considering they rotated 8 players. The only starters that started on the weekend and were back in the starting lineup for the midweek episode, for the midweek game, was Cello Wiegand, Julian Gressel, who started in the midfield and then went to right wing, and then Drake Callender. How are you feeling about this lineup? How are you feeling going into the game about how this game should have played out? And do you think, just broad brush, it went how you thought it was going to go?
Lineup, starting 11, absolutely loved it. I was excited to see some of the youngsters in the pitch. I know it's not our first preferred 11, a few players missing, but what we put out on the pitch was definitely competitive, and I wanted to see some of these players get the minutes. Robert Taylor, seeing him back in that starting 11 was a breath of fresh air. The midfield combination was very, very good. The chemistry between the 3 of them and what they brought to the midfield was very exciting. We'll talk about it a little bit more, but I thought there were some elements that were missing, but that was understandable. We didn't have any of our main veterans on the pitch. I said the game was going to be scrappy, slightly difficult, but I thought Inter Miami would be able to edge it because of our bench. The bench was very, very strong. It turned out slightly opposite because the bench ended up costing us the game a little bit and changed the dynamic of how the play was going. Overall, I think for the first 75, 80 minutes, I really enjoyed what we were putting on the pitch. Some of the play was really good. The goals that came across were good. But the last 10 minutes sort of ruined the evening for us. But at the end of the day, it's an away game in the MLS, not an easy place to go to. Atlanta has become a little bit of bogey for us this season, and I wouldn't want to see them again, but there may be a possibility we see them again in the playoffs. So I thought the young players performed well, and that's a positive to take back. Plenty of positives to take back from this game, but overall a difficult game. Not easy made by Atlanta for sure.
Yeah, listen, last year we went to Atlanta and we lost 5-2. So certainly this was an improvement.
And we could have won that game. So there were opportunities to win it or lose it as well, but we could have won it at one point.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it was very even. And actually, I think Atlanta had the better opportunities. Let's get into the first half. It was sort of a slow start. Inter Miami plays this style of trying to control possession and then when they're in defense, they keep everything in front of them. Very similar to what we played over the weekend. Very similar to what we played before Messi went on his international trip to Copa America. I'm glad that we saw the similar style, and it was very much under control in terms of what Inter Miami was doing on the pitch. That was my impression. We do get our first opportunity in the 14th minute. Julian Gressel finds himself in the box, looks like he's going to put a cross in, and instead says, "Ha, I got you." Fires it. Brad Guzan makes a nice save to deflect it, and he has the best reaction I've ever seen from him. And if you didn't see on Twitter, I put that GIF out as the byline for this episode. In the 29th minute, that's when the game finally opens up. Franco Negri puts a ball into Leo Campana, but it gets deflected by Dax McCarty and winds up at the feet of David Ruiz, who's sitting at the edge of the box, takes one touch, turns around, and fires past Brad Guzan to open the scoring for Inter Miami. And I thought this was an awesome moment for David Ruiz. I'm sure we'll talk about him later, but what a goal. What a start for him. And I think this really kicked us into high gear in that first half.
Yeah, the start was dynamic, fresh, looked like everyone was sharp. I thought there'd be issues with the physicality aspect in the first 10 minutes, but it didn't look like that. I thought the midfield battle was very interesting. Atlanta was on top for a little bit. They were controlling the midfield a lot more, but we had the transitional play and the legs to keep up with them. Again, I thought Benha, Ruiz, Wright, all were doing really well in the middle of the park. The only thing that was missing a little bit was control and composure. And that has to do with a profile like Sergio Busquets being absent from that midfield. I mentioned this yesterday. We needed somebody to keep the ball moving, setting the tempo of the play and a metronome of sorts. And that wasn't necessarily there, which sort of led to losing the ball a little bit. But I thought we did well enough. And that goal itself, Franco Negri finding himself in the middle of the park, that was interesting. But put in a ball that got deflected, got lucky a little bit, but Ruiz with a very calm finish, and I thought deserved in terms of how he was performing on the pitch at that time.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with the Inter Miami not having Busquets in the game. And we will get to that in a few minutes here because that came up as a talking point when we did our post-game reaction last night. And I think if someone has the takeaway from that game that we were really missing Busquets, I would understand. And of course,
No,
having Busquets would have been better. But I have a comment, but I want to hold on for a few more minutes. David Ruiz, you could see he had the confidence because just 7 minutes later, in the 36th minute, he finds himself in position to take a shot, and he puts a whale of a shot into goal, but it's right at Brad Guzan. If that ball is a yard in either direction, I think it's a goal because he smashed that ball, and you could see the confidence oozing from David Ruiz. And then the only other moment in the first half I wanted to touch on was that 41st minute. There was a handball by Derek Williams right at the edge of the box, probably not in the box for a penalty, but it would have been a great free kick opportunity that the referee just sort of played on. And because I think it was 6 inches outside the box, we couldn't go back and VAR it, which was disappointing. But overall, I think considering the lineup, considering the youth of this team, it was a very positive first half, and Inter Miami goes into the break with a 1-0 lead.
Yeah, and Atlanta barely threatened. I don't remember a single shot on Callender's goal in that first half, and that actually is a good indicator of how well we were performing across the pitch. I thought Christoph was really good in that first half. Ian Frey was very good in that first half. Cello Wigan had one of his better performances for Inter Miami. Franco Negri looked really good and comfortable. It just felt like everyone understood their roles, understood where they were supposed to be, and overall it looked like a well-planned, thought-out game. And it was going our way. I will say, though, the commentators can often make the game look different than what it actually is playing out. And I switched off the commentary because it was jarring for me a little bit. And once I did, because the commentators made it sound like Inter Miami was under a lot of pressure throughout the half. And at some point in time, they also mentioned that or insinuated that we were a little bit lucky. That was enough for me to put them on mute. And after that, when I was watching the game, it felt like we were under control for large portions of that first half.
I actually really like Taylor Twellman and that crew. I just don't like it when they do Inter Miami games. And maybe it's because when I watch other games, I don't know them well enough to like fully understand everything that's going on. But when they call Inter Miami games, it's just so frustrating. As you said, not put under a lot of pressure in that first half. That was not the story of the second half. Basically, immediately it changed. 56th minute is when Atlanta finally gets the breakthrough. It's a cross from Pedro Amador into Sabalob Janitze, who deflects it into goal through the legs of Drake Callender. And I want to stop here and mention something because there is something that I've been trying to say, but it's never played out in the game. But I've always been worried about, and that's Ian Frey. On this play, Sabalob Janitze is sort of drifting towards Ian Frey and out of view of Cello Wigan. And so it becomes Ian Frey's man to get in there and physically push him off the ball so that he can't put a shot on a header on goal. And he does this weird thing where he tries to kick up at the ball, and actually the ball ends up deflecting off his hand and then down to Drake, or down past Drake. Ian Frey is a very young player, and as a center back, he needs just 50 games, 100 games at center back before he's going to be sharp there. And we see every time, I always mention this, every month or two, you can see the improvement in Toto Avilas' game, but that's because he's playing regularly there. Ian Frey still has those center back mistakes that you can't have as a central defender because it can cost you goals. And you can have those as a fullback because they don't generally cost you goals in the same way. But to me, it was Ian Frey sort of a what are you doing kind of moment. And those are the type of moments that young center backs have. We can talk about Drake Callender too, but this is why I've always advocated and continue to advocate for Ian Frey as a right back and not as a center back, because in order to fulfill his potential as a center back, he just needs to play there for a whole season. He's not going to have the opportunity to do that over the next couple of weeks. So I want him to be a right back on this team, not a center back. And I think we should be less excited when he plays as a center back as compared to a right back, because I think you should be ultra excited when he's a right back.
I don't necessarily fully agree with you on that point, but I don't disagree with you either. It's interesting you mentioned Ian Frey. So there was an instance throughout that play And what happened was, I think it was Lobjanitse who Ian Frey was marking. Ian Frey drifted inwards into the middle of the pitch to mark his man, which sort of pulled Chelo Wigan further in and left this massive gap on the left-hand side, which allowed the cross to come in. That for me was a bigger mistake than what Ian Frey did, marking his man. Coming back in, I think once he came back in, he still recovered well enough to be able to put his person off and make the header slightly less potent. Of course, we saw Drake Callender spill that. But if Drake Callender had caught that ball, it would have been fine. I completely understand your point, and I know Frey should have been much stronger and should have had that centre back instinct to get on the right side of his man. That was definitely an error. But he also got out of position initially, which basically pulled Chelo Wigan in. And then another aspect of that play was Julian Gressel, who I thought could have closed the man down a little bit better to stop the cross from coming in. But yeah, that's definitely a point to raise about Ian Frey. He's not a fully constructed centre back yet, and he will need more game time in that position to be able to cut out some of these errors and mistakes from his game. But I still think it could have been an avoidable mistake if Drake Callender had fully saved that. And I would blame obviously Callender more on this, but I completely get your point about Frey being a little bit light when going off of the ball.
I watched it about 15 times. I think that it's more Frey's fault. It did go through Drake Callender's legs. It was a little tough because, and Drake would say he has to save that. I think I'm giving him 5% of an excuse because it goes off Lobjanitse's head and then it redirects off of Frey's hand and it goes a little bit farther down. Quick reaction. I would have expected him to make that save. I absolutely give him blame for it. So I don't mean to be an apologist for it, but I definitely think Ian Frey has to do better on that. I think that's a play that you should handle at the center back spot. And again, it's just Ian Frey, part of his development is he's going to learn from that. And it wasn't even just his positioning. It was the fact that he went in with the side of his body and he tried to kick it, deflect it with his foot instead of trying to be physical with his head. It looked like not a center back trying to defend that as a center back. But again, he will get better and he will continue and improve. But Inter Miami responded immediately. In fact, it was the very next possession that Inter Miami gets up the field and Benjamin Cremaschi earns a foul just outside the box. This is when Inter Miami goes up 2-1. I know on the score sheet, it looks like it was 3 or 4 minutes later, but it was really about 30 seconds of gameplay after that Inter Miami gets the foul that leads to Leo Campana's shot from just outside the box, free kick shot. It deflects off Dax McCarty and it goes in. The foul was on Dax McCarty, so a tough moment for McCarty. But Leo Campana pulls Inter Miami back in front 2-1 in the 59th minute. And I was ecstatic with our response because it was immediate, it was fast, it was decisive, and it was convincing. In that moment, not only did he bring the game to a 2-1 lead for Inter Miami, he also became Inter Miami's all-time leading goal scorer. So congratulations to Leo Campana for that goal because it was a momentous record-setting goal, and he deserves a lot of credit for his entire Inter Miami career, really.
I was very surprised that he took that goal or took that free kick, but you know what? He ended up getting the ball in one way or another, and fantastic achievement, man. To be the top scorer for this Inter Miami team is a big achievement, needs to be congratulated. Thought he had a decent game. I don't think he was fantastic by any means, but he wasn't bad as well, and he got us that second goal, so that's all that matters, and well done to him.
Then it kind of went bad for Inter Miami. I will just make mention of this. We sub in Lionel Messi and sub out Julian Gressel almost immediately after that goal. And at the same time, Atlanta makes a few subs. Edwin Mosquera comes on. I believe they brought on Fortune in the midfield as well. And then they really get going. Atlanta trying to equalize. Edwin Mosquera had an opportunity where he got wide open for a header on a corner, but he put it wide. Just 1 minute later, he gets in behind. Drake Callender has to make an incredible save. That's where he makes the chest save. The ball bounces out. Drake Callender has to make a second save in the same sequence. I thought he showed really well there. In the 71st minute, Mosquera gets behind again. He puts in that hard low cross to Saba Lobjanice. That's just a foot past Lobjanice. If it was a little softer or a little tighter, it would have been an easy tap in for Lobjanice. And then in the 76th minute, Miranchuk has a similar opportunity to what he scores on. It's an opportunity high at the edge of the box. He just puts it a little above the crossbar, but his next opportunity he doesn't miss. In the 84th minute, Miranchuk has the banger of a goal. But that moment comes 45 seconds on the next possession after Inter Miami has a chance to put it away. In the 83rd minute, Messi finds himself with the ball in the box, puts the shot on goal, barely deflected by Brad Guzan, like actual fingertips. But it winds up right at the feet of Luis Suárez, who should have had a tap in, but it was a really miraculous goal line block from Pedro Amador to keep it out. And then going the other way, Atlanta creates a second goal off of the foot of Alexei Miranchuk, who, I mean, goal of the month candidate right there.
It was so frustrating because we were that close, and all it needed was Suarez to maybe even miskick that ball. He shot it really, really well. I don't think the defender had any idea where it was. Derek Williams, I believe it was.
It was Pedro Amador.
Yeah. He had absolutely no clue. I think it hit his calf and came off. But if Suarez had maybe mistimed it or just placed it a little bit more, it would have been an automatic goal, and that could have put us 3-1. It was really unfortunate that we conceded immediately after. But you know what? Miranchuk had an absolute banger of a goal. No complaints there at all. Could have maybe been a little bit better. I saw the replay for that. I can't blame Redondo. I'm sure we're going to have a conversation about him. The couple of players who were close to Miranchuk should have closed them down better. Nothing Drake Callender could have done once the ball left Miranchuk's feet. Kudos to him for a beautiful goal, but I did think that maybe the defending could have been a little bit better. Going to the ball could have been much faster, and we could have closed him down to prevent the opportunity. But it is what it is. That left side got absolutely decimated in that second half, and all the opportunities came from that.
And that was not it for Atlanta. I'm just going to run through these quickly because it is not a time I want to relive. But in the 88th minute, another incredible opportunity. Lobjanice has a step over, then shot. It deflects off of Ryan Saylor. Then it deflects off of Ian Frey, and then it hits off the post. That could have been the winner for them. Then he had another really, really good opportunity in the 94th minute. He creates a bit of room in the box and puts a curler trying to hit that far post, and he puts it a few inches wide. But the game ends 2-2. Inter Miami, after those final 10 minutes, felt like they survived with 1 point instead of the first 80 minutes where they looked like they were the much better team. They come away with only 1 point, frustrated and with some real question marks that we have to spend the next half an hour diagnosing. Anything else? Any other moments in that game that you wanted to come back to?
Mosquera coming on was absolutely the game changer for me. He brought on something for Atlanta that they were missing, and something that Inter Miami has struggled against, especially with Franco Negri in there, who's obviously not physically up for the task as much. Plus, he's already run into the ground for the last 60 minutes. So him going up against Mosquera was a bit of a cheat code for Atlanta, and that for me was, I think, one of the biggest game changers, but I'm sure we're going to talk about that.
Okay. We're going to talk about the substitutes because I think they changed the game on both directions. But before we do that, Atlanta, I thought was better than I was expecting. Miranchuk was definitely better than I was prepared for. He didn't really have any shining moments in the first couple appearances for Atlanta. I thought when he was on the ball, he was the best, most dangerous player for the first 75, 80 minutes, other than a few moments from Lobjanice, a few moments from Mosquera. But especially in the first half, you could just see there's a quality to his game. He had a couple balls forward to set up good opportunities. that just didn't come off, but you could see the talent there. And so congratulations to Atlanta. Hopefully he becomes a really good player for you.
There was also another aspect in the second half, because I think Miranchuk moved central to the number 10 position, and Mosquera took that right wing spot. So that allowed Miranchuk to maybe control and dictate the ball a little bit more. And that was interesting and turned the tide in their favor. And they should technically play him there a lot more now, and not on the left wing side or right wing side, because I think that's his position.
Yeah, I agree. And we can get back to that in a minute. But the thing I wanted to mention was the play style. Inter Miami came out and tried to play their style. They did not go back to what they've often done without Messi, which is sit back, press high, try and win it quickly and create offense. And if that doesn't work, sit really low and only hit in transition. That style of play that we saw for a couple months did not return in this game just because we were without starting Messi. And so I thought that was a good sign. I want this team to build into what they're going to be as they sort of inch their way closer to the playoffs. And so I really enjoyed that. And I'm happy they did that. And so I want to give credit to Tata and Jorge Thielen for, putting his guys in that position and trusting the young players to play and execute that style.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we were away from home, and even then we decided to be a little bit more adventurous and more proactive in possession, which we didn't necessarily see when we played against Philadelphia, which was a weird one. But yeah, I completely agree with you. Again, I don't want to harp on the point of Sergio Busquets being absent, but it's not about Sergio Busquets as a player. I think this team would have been a lot better, even more so than it was, if they had someone who could maybe control the tempo a little bit. And that's just an addition that we could have had maybe. Unfortunately, we don't have that player available other than Sergio Busquets. Maybe Redondo is considered one of those players who could do that, but maybe that was something that was missing. 95% was good. That 5% could have been better.
Do you know what changed from the first 80 minutes when we weren't struggling to control the ball to the last 15 minutes when we could not control the ball?
No, enlighten me.
Sergei Kristoff went out for the game. And that is when everything changed, because when he left, our back line completely lost possession, or lost their positional awareness. They lost their shape, and they lost the player that they can go to just sit on the ball and calm things down. When he left the game, everyone was Ian Frey, Negri, who was gassed, Frey being a young player, Ryan Saylor, a guy who hasn't played a ton. He played fine, but he wasn't able to just sit on the ball, relax, calm everybody down, and just hold possession and kill some of the chaos in the game. And he was doing that for the first 80 minutes. I didn't realize this as it was happening, but when I rewatched it today, I noticed that it was Kristoff that was consistently keeping this team in shape for the first 80 minutes. And when he left, we missed him. Not something I was expecting to see in the second watch, but I think his leaving the game actually had the biggest impact on this team struggling to hold the ball, struggling to create possession, struggling to just be calm and comfortable on the ball over those last 15 minutes. I've seen a lot of criticism for both Messi and Suárez over the last 24 hours because they don't play defense or because their substitutes didn't win the game for us. I actually thought those two played fine. To me, the real problems came in that 67th minute substitution window when we brought on Federico Redondo and we brought on Jordi Alba. And not only did we bring on Jordi Alba, but we brought on Jordi Alba as a left winger, took off Robert Taylor. And so I want to go back to that moment and sort of talk through how this happens. Inter Miami goes up 2-1, and then we bring on Lionel Messi. And I thought that was fine. We only got it for a minute or two before Atlanta responds. And they bring on Fortune and Mosquera. Pace and athleticism in the midfield and absolute pace up the field on transition opportunities. And I think that was the first time they looked particularly dangerous. And I watched Mosquera on back-to-back moments in both the 63rd and 64th minute create offense by being athletic. And then I watched, they cut to the bench. And immediately after that, you see Federico Redondo and Jordi Alba warm up. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, this makes a lot of sense for a substitute to get fresh legs in at that left back spot to be able to defend Mosquera and to get fresh legs into the midfield in Federico Redondo to help counter the fresh legs of Fortune. Like, it made like a great sub. And then I thought to myself, wait, that's not actually what happened. And so not taking Franco Negri out and instead taking Robert Taylor, I thought was the worst decision that happened in this game. Because if you have Jordi Alba as a true left back, he has fresh legs and pace to be able to defend Mosquera and to eliminate that threat, or to handle that threat more effectively than if it's Franco Negri, who's both not as athletic and also an hour in and tired. And then also, I think we all expected a lot more in the midfield from Federico Redondo. I'm sure we will talk about him more when we get to our awards, but that substitute, even in retrospect and then having rewatched the game, I think it makes even less sense now, because you were immediately vulnerable to pace down that side of the pitch, and you brought in a left back that could have been the counter move to that new injection of pace from Atlanta. And instead of playing him as a left back, you played him way high up the field. And that I don't agree with. And I don't know if that was a Jorge Thiele thing. I think that was probably a Tata Martino idea, that he was like, you try this so that you get the blame if it doesn't work. But either way, it certainly didn't work. And especially in that moment when you had this injection of pace down the wing and Atlanta, and Inter Miami countered with the wrong move. And I thought that was really the biggest difference in the game.
I said this immediately in the post-game reaction. The bringing of Robert Taylor and putting in Jordi Alba in that position was an awful move. I'm glad you rewatched that game and you can validate that point, because for me, that completely changed the nature of that left side. Franco Negri he was running on fumes. He didn't have legs to keep up with Mosquera. He didn't have legs to keep up with any player who can put together a couple of runs. Mosquera was a beast in transition. So expecting Franco Negri to defend that was a big ask. You compare that to Robert Taylor, who can still offer a threat going forward. I thought it was a mistake to bring Robert Taylor on. And then you make a really good point about Jordi Alba being in that left back position. I thought the idea for that change, putting Jordi Alba in for Robert Taylor, was to allow Jordi Alba to play slightly higher up the pitch and maybe put in a few balls for Messi to get that goal and the cutbacks that he's so good at. I thought he could have done that regardless, even if he played in the left back spot, especially with the way Robert Taylor complements Jordi Alba. They could have had that overlapping run that would allow Alba to be more effective in the offense. And by keeping Franco Negri on the pitch, you really diluted your physicality that was needed on that left side of the pitch. And interesting that you mentioned Redondo. I would have had the exact same reaction. I thought Redondo on paper was a good sub to bring on, to bring some legs into the midfield. But he just looked gassed yesterday. I don't know. Again, I don't want to speculate what the issue was, whether it was a health issue, but he just didn't look up to speed. And that absolutely killed our physical momentum, and our physical ceiling just dropped immensely once that change was made. And yeah, like that was visible in real time. There was one moment, I think in the 82nd and the 83rd minute, where Franco Negri took a step forward. Mosquera saw that and made a run in behind. And then Franco Negri was just left in no man's land. He couldn't even catch up to him. And that was a sign of what was to come. Fortunately for us, Atlanta couldn't finish their opportunities because they created a fair few from that left side. A fair few.
They did. And again, not just defensively did it leave you vulnerable, because Negri was not in a position in that point in the game to be able to defend Mosquera. But also you took away one of your attacking weapons, because Negri and Jordi Alba are the same player. Well, Franco Negri is not as good as Jordi Alba, but they do the same things from that left side, and they do not have the chemistry to like actually work together. They don't do different enough things to actually complement each other. So you basically had two players that are filling one role, and it became redundant. And so you hurt yourself defensively and you hurt your attack, or at least gave yourself less potential potency in attack. So really a poor sub. And then I think the other subs also made a negative impact in the game, not because I thought Ryan Saylor and Luis Suarez were poor in the last 15 minutes, but because taking Christoph off, and I get he might have been hurt, so he may have had to come off, but I think that sub hurt because you lost that veteran presence that could just calm the game down. And I think Atlanta did a really good job of making our back line play really fast and forcing turnovers, not just our back line, our midfield too, And I looked at it and I thought there's a lot of youth and inexperience here. And I can see why they can be revved up to play fast, trying to get that one goal on the counterattack to try and make the game. Like, you just sometimes need that veteran who's just going to sit on the ball, calm things down, say, guys, we still have 8 to 10 minutes left. We don't have to press in the next 30 seconds to try and get this goal. We can just settle into this game, shore ourselves up so we don't lose, and then just create 1 or 2 high-quality chances to get the win. And that didn't really exist on the back line once Christoph left. So I thought the subs really hurt. And then again, I thought Atlanta had the right subs to counter what Inter Miami had. All of that to be said, when those 2 subs, Jordi Alba and Federico Redondo came on, I did appreciate the fact that Thielер was quick to notice a problem and pull the trigger on a potential solution. It was just the wrong potential solution. And I think just taking out Negri instead of Robert Taylor would have made that actually an exceptional substitution window. And instead it was the one that cost us the game. But I digress.
Yeah. And I think you summed it up really well. There was a sense of unwarranted urgency. It was like we were rushing in the final third to get the ball. And this was when we were winning 2-1. So I feel like you're right. It may be a lack of inexperience. It may be something to do with trying to get Messi that goal. It just felt like we were rushing a little bit too much when we just did not need to. And someone had to just tell everyone to calm it down a little bit. And at the last 10 minutes of the game was the most basketball game that I've ever seen, where it was one end, other end, one end, other end. And one thing I'll 100% agree with Taylor Twellman on was there was no midfield for both teams. There was no midfield. Made for a really fun watch, though. So unfortunately, we didn't come out with the goods this time around.
You know, there have been times this season where Inter Miami has gotten into those back and forth, no midfield type situations, and they have been the team that has the quality to finish the first chance to really break the game open. I'm thinking about that game at DC United earlier in the year when we won 3-1. For large portions of the last 25 minutes of that game, there was absolutely no midfield. And so we were just going back and forth, and Suárez and Campana and Federico Redondo had the quality to create the goals, and we won that game 3-1. Tonight, we just never really created those goals. And in response, Atlanta was creating really good chances and had that one moment of real quality. The response by Miami, well, let me rephrase this. Inter Miami, from the minute Lionel Messi arrived, was good in the final moments of games. Come back, I mean, from his first game, right? We get the winner in stoppage time of that Cruz Azul game in his debut. That Leagues Cup, we had lots of late comebacks. The U.S. Open Cup semifinal, I think, was the epitome of that, with that 98th minute goal to equalize and send it to overtime from Messi to Campana. And it felt like, because you have the quality, they will show up in the final 10 minutes. And even this season, I think about the very beginning of the season when at the LA Galaxy, Messi scores a goal late. Even though we did not deserve to get a point there, we get a point because Messi and Suárez combined for a moment in the 86th minute or whatever it was to get us that goal that we needed. It has been a long time since we have finished a game strong, positively, and in control. Maybe that Charlotte game where Cremaschi has a goal in the 86th minute, but it doesn't feel like we have controlled the last 5 to 8 minutes of a game to really try and put pressure on to create that goal when we really need it. Maybe that Columbus Crew game in the Leagues Cup when we were desperate and we were just throwing bodies forward. But it has felt like a long time since we've had that real control where it's just like, we're going to pour it on you until we get a goal.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said that a part of it has to do with lacking some of the players. So we had injuries ravaged by that for a long while. We've never had a fully fit squad. I'm thinking if we have everybody fit and we bring players off the bench to try and close the game down, we'll be a lot more secure and comfortable. But you're completely right. Inter Miami hasn't necessarily had that game. First of all, we haven't had a game of 90 minutes where we control the game throughout. I don't remember the last time we did that. And then again, the closing out moments have been a little bit scrappy, chaotic, and just overall not fun to watch as an Inter Miami fan. Yesterday, I wouldn't put it too much to some of our veterans. You could clearly see Messi is still getting up to speed with the pace of the game. I'm not sure whether it was the turf, whether it was him coming in and trying to take some time to settle down. It just didn't look like he was, comfortable or sharp as normally you would expect him to be, and that's completely normal. Do you think if we play this game right now and we go into the playoffs tomorrow, do you think we'd be able to see through a full 90-minute game without hiccups? Yes or no?
I'll be honest. I am not ready to think about the playoffs yet. My confidence is in a very shaky place after some of my after what I've looked into today. So I don't really want to go there right now.
We're not dominating teams, and I think we've got 6 more games left, and I think over the next 6 games, I want to see us in the best form possible to make sure when we go into the playoffs, it's a lot easier. 5 games, even less. So yeah, I doubt that's going to happen. I think that's just in an ideal world, and we're probably going to get into the playoffs thinking, okay, we need to fix a few things here and there, but that's for another time.
I don't want to spend too much time on this, but maybe we should mention it just for the sake of, completing this conversation. We definitely force-fed Messi in this game too much. There was like 3 or 4, maybe 5 times where it felt like we were just one of our players was just like, I'm going to give the ball to Messi, and I don't care if he's open, and I don't care if it's a sound play or if it's part of a pattern of play. Like, I'm just going to get it to him and let him do his thing. And so that's something that they can't have. I didn't think it was really a problem over the weekend, but hopefully the guys look at the film room and say, okay, we can't do that. And so I don't want to consider it like a consistent theme or a huge problem, but it was something I noticed in this game.
It was definitely visible. It was much more prominent than any other game I've seen Inter Miami play. And more so because I think Atlanta was clogging down the spaces in the middle of the pitch. That's where Lionel Messi and Suárez both operate the most. And it just felt like when there were opportunities for the players to maybe create something out wide, they were going central and trying to get Messi the ball when maybe he wasn't in the best position and there were other options available. So it was a little bit more visible this game around, but I don't think that's going to be a consistent theme. I hope it's not going to be a consistent theme.
The last question before we get into awards is Tata Martino wasn't on the sidelines. Do you have any thoughts on Jorge Thiele's performance or what it was like without Tata Martino? Are you ready to give him a big hug and reintroduce him this weekend?
I'll be honest. I think whatever Jorge Thiele did was through Tata Martino. I think it's definitely instructions that were coming in from the top. He would not have done anything arbitrarily by himself. So I still think it was Tata Martino on the sidelines, just not in physical form. I don't know if I'm ready to hug him yet, but I'll give him a little bit of a handshake and welcome him back on the sidelines. Yes. I'll be honest, my bets are on the next game for us to score big. And if that doesn't happen, I'm going to be very disappointed. So I'm going to be as positive as I can before that New York game.
They do say that Disney World is the happiest place on earth. And that is what NYC, the Yankee Stadium, when it's a soccer field, feels like. Okay, let's get into awards. On this show, we give out 6 awards: an Inter Miami Man of the Match, a Heron that flew north, and 2 individual awards each. Because I went first over the weekend, it is your turn to give out the Man of the Match from Miami. Enlighten us on who deserves this award.
There were a couple of options I was considering, but ultimately I went with David Ruiz. He scored the opening goal, and I thought he had a really good showing in the middle of the park. So for me, David Ruiz is the man of the match. He looked very confident. I think a lot of that might have to do with him scoring a couple of goals for Honduras. He had a very good game overall. Didn't look out of place in that midfield, and thought he gave a good account of himself. Made himself available for that deflected ball from Negri and finished with a good composure. For me, David Ruiz is the man of the match. I would have given it to Callender, but I thought he could have done a much better job on that first goal that Atlanta scored. So it was a toss-up between the two of them. I thought Benna had a good game as well. So a few options, but David Ruiz with that goal has to be it.
Probably not who I would have gone with, but he gets the goal, opens the lead, and I agree with you. Especially after that goal, he was playing with a ton of confidence. He's had a few goals for Honduras during the international break, so he's coming in with confidence. He gets an opportunity to start, and I think he made the most of it. And I think it's kind of a shame that he got nicked because he had to come out early and wasn't able to see the game through. But good performance from David Ruiz. I think this is something he can build on. If I'm not mistaken, it's his first goal contribution of the season. And he's a guy that has those in him. We saw last year, I think he had 4. No, actually, he has 2 assists this year. But it's his first goal of the season. I think he had 3 last year. So he's got a goal in him. And it's good to finally see that coming through for Inter Miami this year. And it helped Inter Miami get a point. So I'm cool with it. Okay, our next award is the Heron that flew north. This is the award that goes to the player that was doing the wrong thing, because Florida Herons don't fly north for the winter. They don't fly anywhere for the winter. So if you catch a Florida Heron flying north, they are doing the wrong thing. And in that spirit, I am giving the Heron that flew north to Federico Redondo. He came in and it was supposed to be the legs and the engine of the midfield. He was supposed to be the player that calmed the game down, and instead he was instantly the worst midfielder. Even in that half an hour, 25 minutes he was on, he was worse than Cremaschi, and he was worse than Yannick Bright, who had already played 60, 65, 67 minutes of ball. Really, really disappointing performance from him. In that second goal from Miranchuk, he was the player that should have closed down. I know Franco Negri was also stepping up to close down, but Franco Negri has to stay compact in case he makes a move to the byline. That's still his man. Redondo is the player that can more aggressively go after him because he has help on all sides. He doesn't, and it turns into a goal. By the way, just FYI, 8 minutes before that, in the 76th minute, there's an almost identical play that Redondo does not close down on, and Miranchuk just puts it high. But it could have been another goal, and if it was an equally brilliant shot from Miranchuk, they would have gotten the first goal or the second goal in the 76th minute. And again, it was Redondo who did not close down. Really disappointing. Even in possession, when the game was just wide open, he had a few balls that he was force feeding to Messi, and he just turned it over. Messi wasn't open, and the ball got intercepted. Really, really disappointing performance from Redondo. He looked gassed. We mentioned that. He looked exhausted, even though he was supposed to be the fresh legs. I'm going to go so far to say is if you're too tired to play 30 minutes last night, you can't play 90 minutes on Saturday. I think you have to start either Cremaschi or David Ruiz after their performances ahead of Redondo, just because it was so poor, and poor from a lack of effort standpoint. And I hate saying that about professional because I know they work so hard, and I certainly could not do what they're doing. But even he has done significantly better. And I think he's going to wake up this morning and think either he's got an injury that we don't know about, or it was just a very, very disappointing performance from him. So he gets the Heron that flew north from me.
Yeah, completely justified. Exactly who I would have given it to, and I agree with you on every single point that you've made. I'll add to that. There was obviously the case of him being slightly out of pace physically. That was very much visible. He did not look up for it. He looked 10 steps behind every single player on that pitch. And for someone who came in the 60th minute to shore up the midfield, he was nowhere near the physical capacity to keep up with the speed of the game. There were so many times where you could just see him put his head down, give a big puff, and just try and run. Towards the end of it, he was basically jogging through. There was one instance where Lobjanitse made a play from the right-hand side, drifted past Redondo, and Redondo looked at him and then just let him run. And that, for me, was one of the biggest signs that he was not supposed to be in that pitch at that point in time, or he should not have been on the pitch at that point in time. I don't know what it is. As I mentioned earlier, and you said it very well, don't want to bash on a player, especially when they've had a poor performance, but it didn't look good, and the lack of effort was exactly what was showing. I hope it's not a long-term injury or something more serious underlying, but it just didn't look he was prepared for the game. And for me, I think he needs to be benched the next game, just because it's not a good look for the team. it really lets down a lot of your teammates around you who've put in so much effort. And you could see that towards the end of the game. Franco Negri, Ian Frey fell down to his knees. Julian Gressel had a really tough game as well. And when they're putting in the effort around you and you leave yourself lacking physically, it's not looking good. Second aspect and second point I want to mention is his positioning. Very much off the cuff, completely wrong. There were instances where he was playing on the same line as Benjamin Cremaschi, and that's not where he's supposed to be. It was very much evident that he was the reason that there was a gulf in behind. And you mentioned this yesterday, that Bright was so gassed that he could not play in the middle of the park because he knew he didn't have the pace to keep up with someone like Mascara. So he was playing slightly ahead of the defense and he was sitting back a lot more. Redondo needed to be that link between Bright and Cremaschi. Yet he was playing on the edge of the box, trying to get involved in scoring the goals. That was not his role. That should not have been his role. And if the coaching staff gave him that instruction, that was completely wrong. His positioning has been an issue, man. Throughout this last 3-4 month stretch, I have not been convinced by it. And yesterday was very much evident because he lacked pace and because he was always playing much higher up than I thought he was supposed to. You've already mentioned his lack of effort on the goal, so I'm not going to hammer that in. But yeah, sorry, just wanted to mention that. I know it's been a long rant about Redondo, but I didn't like his performance yesterday.
Well, let's keep it going, because one of the reasons we give out these awards is sometimes performances demand to be talked about, but sometimes we want to use them as a conversation or, an entryway to a bigger conversation. And I feel like, at what point do we get there with Redondo that he is not or should not be a locked-in midfielder in this team?
At this point, I'm at that point.
I've been there for a long time, so I understand that maybe I'm quick to the trigger on these things, and so I want to preface my whole comments about him is I think he's probably going to be incredible for us next season, but for this season, I think he's probably the rotation piece. But we'll see what ends up happening. But is this that type of performance that could earn him a trip to where Cremaschi's been, as a guy that comes on in the second half and has to?
I thought you meant Julian Gressel's spa, because that's a therapy every player should get.
Oh yes, Julian Gressel's spa.
No, I completely agree with you. And there's a case to be made that when you have such good depth in your midfield, competition needs to be rife. When you have 2-3 bad performances, which I think Redondo has had in the recent weeks, you need to take a bench in favor of some of the players who are performing better. In fact, Ruiz had gave a better account of himself than Redondo did this game, and maybe even the last game. So for me, definitely should be on the bench against New York City. It wasn't a good look.
Just for the record, and we did a whole podcast on this a couple weeks ago, but my midfield that I want to see is Yannick Bright, Sergio Busquets, and Diego Gomez in one midfield together. I think that's the midfield that would help us dominate games against any competition. Okay, first award goes to you. What you got?
I'm very proud of the awards that I've decided today. So I hope you guys appreciate the creativity behind them. And by you guys, I mean, Scotty, you should appreciate the creativity behind them. I feel like you don't give me enough.
Hold on. You were bragging. Pre-show about how good your awards are. So you have set the bar high. Let's see if you can hit it.
I'm going to go with my first award, and it's called the Bare Necessities Award. And it's not the BARE, it's the BEAR Necessities Award.
The Bare Necessities Award goes to... The Bare Necessities Award goes to Robert Taylor.
How have you guessed that? It does go to Robert Taylor, but there's a very, very deep explanation to this. It's a play on words, but also the word bear, as in the animal bear in there, gives you a little bit of hint to why it's Robert Taylor. But I want to know from you what the explanation is.
Okay, so just for the record, I had an award for Robert Taylor, and it also involved an animal, a tiger. It was called the Napping Tiger at the Zoo Award. The bare necessity, man, he was in hibernation, but he has finally awoken and is ready to go out for the summer and do that thing that bears do, which is eat people and berries.
I hope Robert Taylor doesn't go out and eat people, but yes, a little bit of that. But my explanation basically means, okay, so bare necessities in the actual term of the word, BARE, bare necessities. Robert Taylor is the bare necessity on that left wing side of the pitch. You mentioned Diego Gomez as part of your best three midfield. I completely agree with you. And I think Robert Taylor has to be that left winger. He brings so much to this team, man. The pace that he brings, he stretches out the back line, and it's really good to watch. And it was so refreshing to see him make those runs, be a little bit more expansive than this team normally is. And for me, when Messi is on the pitch, Robert Taylor is the bare necessity to have on that left wing side of the pitch, because he allows you to stretch the defense out and create those spaces in between. Bare necessities with BEAR, because Finland's national animal is a bear. So that would give you a little bit of an insight as to why this is a Finnish award. And then, of course, Robert Taylor has been in hibernation. We haven't seen much of him. And I think it's high time you let him out and maybe go get some honey and roam around on the pitch. So for me, he was very, very good yesterday, maybe even understated. I know he didn't have much role to play in the goals, didn't have too many contributions as such, but he had a couple of good crosses in the first 10-15 minutes, which were, which gave you a glimpse into what he can actually do. But for me, Robert Taylor has to be on the pitch when Lionel Messi is there, and bringing him off was, I think, a fatal error.
I agree with everything. I gave him the napping tiger at the zoo award. By the way, bravo, a very multi-dimensional award.
Thank you.
Excellent work. Excellent work. I am proud of the effort you put into that. Or I'm proud of you for the effort that you put into that. I was going to give him. No, I'm not. I was going to give him the napping tiger at the zoo award, and I liked my award, so I'm still going to, say it out loud. When you're a little kid and you go to see the tiger at the zoo and it's just napping, you like bang on the glass and you say, do something. And that's where I feel like Robert Taylor is at right now, because I agree with you. I think he played well. I think he is a true winger, and I want that style of player on the pitch. I think he's going to start there again on Saturday. I don't think they're going to risk Diego Gomez in New York. And so I think he's going to be the left winger on Saturday. And I need him to do something, because he can play well like I thought he did last night, and Tata's still going to go back to Diego Gomez. I need Robert Taylor to play so well, get the goal contributions, to do something special so that he has to stay as the left winger moving forward, and that will allow Tata to put Diego Gomez back in the midfield. The key to all of this is Robert Taylor making it necessary for him to be on the pitch. And while I thought he was good last night, that performance is not going to wow Tata Martino enough to say this guy has to be my left winger. So I need something from Robert Taylor. He's got to do something this weekend.
Hey, we're scoring 7 goals, so he's definitely going to be on the score sheet.
Good award. I really like it. And again, bravo to you for the multi-dimensional aspects of that award. My first award is the best of Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Wow. That sounds like something straight out of Avatar or something.
Okay. Do you know the band Earth, Wind, and Fire?
I do not.
Okay. So you're not going to get this then.
Hey, let me try.
Yeah, go for
I think it's going to go to Drake Callender.
Okay. Why is that?
I don't know, because he's Earth, Wind, and Fire all wrapped into one. The only thing he can't do is save a goal.
I struggle sometimes with my awards because I want to make them not obvious, but also not so hard that you couldn't possibly guess them. And I think maybe I've gone too far with this award. Drake Callender, for the record, Earth, Wind, and Fire's most famous song is a song called September.
Wait, it was Drake Callender?
It was Drake Callender, yes. Congratulations.
Thank you. Job. You never confirmed that.
No, sorry. Good job. Earth, Wind, and Fire's most popular, famous song, and I'm sure you've heard it even if you don't recognize the name of the band, is a song called September. And we're going to look back on this September, and we're going to ask, do you remember the month Drake Callender took the next step in his development, I've said this every single game for the last month, starting with that Chicago Fire game, but he has been so on point. I'm so proud of Drake Callender because he looks so confident coming out for balls, playing those crosses in, things that he was not doing before. He has taken that step, and it felt early in the season like he was trying to take that step, but didn't have the confidence or commitment to it. And he does now. He has done it for a run of games in a row. And I think this is just part of his game now. Yes, he had the moment where he should have let a goal in, or he shouldn't have let the goal in. But still, I thought for the other 89 and a half minutes, he was our best player. I would have thought long and hard about giving him the man of the match because he was exceptional. About 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes after he does give up a goal, he has a goal save with that Mosquera shot that absolutely should have been a goal. Going back to the advanced analytics, one of the reasons that we have been so much better than we should have been is because Messi and Suárez score more goals than they probably should because they're so good. But the other reason is because Drake Callender saves so many shots that he probably shouldn't. He has taken the next step in his development. We will look back and ask, do you remember that September Drake Callender became the next stage of his evolution? And that's why I'm giving Drake Callender the best of Earth, Wind, and Fire.
You know what? You brought it today. Well done. That was very creative. I like that. Completely agree with you. I think Drake Callender has really stepped up for this team. His confidence seems to be quite high as well. And what I liked about yesterday's performance, yes, he made that one mistake. Previously, that would have actually let him down a lot. Like he would have maybe gone back into his shell and made a few more errors after the one error that he made leading up to the goal. Yesterday, it just seemed to galvanize him. He became a beast once he let that goal in. And it was really good for him that we scored immediately after they scored. So that sort of eased his pressure. But he was the biggest reason that we were able to draw this game because there were a couple of opportunities that if Atlanta took and if Drake Callender didn't make those saves, they would have definitely gone ahead. He's been phenomenal this September, and we're definitely going to remember that. And hopefully this is a sign of him actually evolving into the player that we need him to be in that goal. This is going to be really crucial in the playoffs to have a very commanding goalkeeper.
I will add, I am just so unbelievably confident with everything I know about Drake Callender that he really likes that song. So that I thought was fitting too. Okay, let's hear your second award.
Ooh, I have a couple that I might be able to give out, but I'm going to go with the Russian Roulette Award. Not as creative, but still a little bit.
The Russian Roulette Award is going to go to Jordi Alba because we needed someone to defend Miranchuk when he came inside, and that player should have been Jordi Alba at left back, but instead Jorge Thiele took his pistol and fired one shot of Jordi Alba high at the pitch, and it missed. So he's still alive, but it didn't happen.
No. Unfortunately, that's not the right explanation or the right player. I'm going to give that award to Chelo Wigan.
Okay.
Much like a Russian roulette game, Chelo Wigan sometimes fires complete blanks to the point that you and I both have our heads in our hand and we're like, damn, that was quite difficult to watch. He's not done a good job. We need him on the bench and Ian Frey in the right back spot. But yesterday, much like the one time in, once in a blue moon opportunity that a Russian roulette player gets shot in the head because of that one bullet in the chamber, Chelo Wigan fired that one bullet, and I thought he had a really, really good game and was very stout defensively. One aspect of that was that he wasn't asked to do a lot of the offensive duties that he normally does, but I thought he was definitely worth mentioning. He had a good game. Sometimes he can shoot blanks, but yesterday he definitely shot a straight bullet through Atlanta and helped us get through, because one of the instances where he cleared the ball off the line was very important to make sure we defend that lead.
When I rewatched the game, I thought less of Chelo's performance than I did last night when I first watched it. I saw someone on Twitter say we should extend Chelo. and I disagree. So I'm not going to say anything else. I thought he was fine. I thought he was exactly what he always is. And so I don't want to take anything away from him or speak bad about him, because I've done that in the past when he's had poor performances. I don't need to do that when he's had solid performances, but I didn't think he was anything particularly special in this game. So if you want to take it from there, reclaim some positivity for him, I'll let you do that.
Man, you just ruined my award, man. You just absolutely punctured the air that we had going on here.
Yeah, I think it was another blank from him, but it's fine.
Hey, that's Russian roulette for you. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose or die.
Well, maybe we should stop and talk about this for a second, because we probably won't have time to talk about this for several months. But Cello Wiegand is a player who we could lose at the end of the season. I think he's on loan with an option to buy. And I don't think we should trigger it. I think we probably will. But if I had to say what this team needs most in the offseason, I think we need an infusion of pace. And I think we can get that from a forward spot. I think we can get that from a right back. And I think we need a center back also, but we don't need pacey center backs. And I think based on our ability to go get talented players for less than their market value, I think we can get upgrade on Cello. So
I'll just say one comment for that. And that's, if we win the MLS Cup, Cello Wiegand staying. If we don't win the MLS Cup, I don't think he stays, because I don't think Tata stays, and he's a Tata player.
That I'm not as confident in, but anyways, I don't want to.
I am also not convinced to keep him long term. So,
okay, my last award is written on this piece of paper. Let me figure out what it is. Yes, I'm giving the Heartbeat Award.
The Heartbeat Award.
Just for the record, I already told him who gets this.
I think that goes to Lionel Messi, because he's the heartbeat of this team. That's why.
No, it goes to a different Leo, and that is Leo Campana. The Heartbeat is the most iconic Inter Miami kit. The first time we went full pink, it was Messi's first jersey. It was also the first jersey of Leo Campana's hat trick, which kicked off his Inter Miami career. And since that moment, he's gone on to become Inter Miami's all-time leading goal scorer. There's no way I could go through this award section and not give an award to the player who just set the record for the all-time goal-scoring record at this club. It had to be Leo Campana. He had to get an award, and I think the Heartbeat is the most appropriate award for him. I thought his performance was a lot better than other people think. I have come to the conclusion that I appreciate little aspects of his game that maybe other people don't feel like contribute to goals or winning. And maybe I'm just a sucker for those little things that he does. But man, I think he's such a talented player. He would have been one of Atlanta's best players if he was on Atlanta. He would have been, along with Lobjanice and Miranchuk, he would have been their best player. He really is so much more talented than we give him credit for. And it's the little moments that he does so well. What I will say is a lot of strikers get better as they get older because they put in 25,000 shots a year. And you combine that for 10 years and you put in 250,000 shots in practice, that is. You just get so much more efficient at goal scoring. And Campana does all the other little aspects of the game so well, in my opinion. So I think by the time he's 25, maybe 27, 28, he's going to be an absolute beast in this league. And I do hope it's for Inter Miami. But also, he's the all-time goal scorer and leader, and that deserves an award. So that's what I got.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think he will start for maybe 15 or more MLS teams. We are very lucky to have him. It just so happens that we have a world-class striker playing in that position for us. So I really liked his performance yesterday. I don't think it was outstanding or exceptional, but it was still very good. He does a lot of things very well, and especially when you want to play a little bit of a high press style, you want your striker to be available for crosses. You want your striker to hold up a little bit. He does a lot of those things very, very well, and he's only going to get better. So for me, congratulations to him for being the leading goal scorer for this team. And that's a very, very underrated achievement. I know there are a lot of fans who don't necessarily like him as a player, but you have to realize he's the top goal scorer for this club. And yes, we are a young club at the end of the day, but that still says a lot. And he's on the youngish side, and he's only going to get better. So hopefully we keep him around and we get to see the best years of Campana with Inter Miami and nobody else.
Okay, that's 6 awards, man. Is there anybody else that you feel like we should have a conversation about? I feel like the Christoph comment about him, I think, being a steady presence in the back line, I think was worth talking about. I thought Luis Suarez and Lionel Messi were fine in this game. I know there was a lot of criticism for them, but especially from the, on Twitter and online, but I didn't feel like they were the problem. I really did think it was the Redondo and then where you played Alba was the real problem for us in this game. I thought Messi and Suarez did what they do, and if we had done things better, we wouldn't have given up the second goal, and we would have potentially created more opportunities going forward for them.
And they created opportunities. We could have gone 3-1 up, and that second goal would never have come from Atlanta. So they did what they were supposed to do. It didn't look as pretty as normal, but that's completely understandable. And I agree with you. I also had an award for Benjamin Cremaschi. I thought he had a really good game, worth a shout out. Again, I thought he deserved more minutes, but quite dead by the end of it. He ran his butt off.
I have a comment about Cremaschi too, and I was going to give him an award if it came to this, but he was now given a U22 contract, which is the same contract that Redondo's on. It's the same contract Diego Gomez is on. It's the same contract that Toto Avilas is on. And so that makes me wonder, what is it about those other players that is just automatically giving them minutes over Cremaschi? Because before you had committed more financial resources to them. You're not doing that really in terms of how much you're paying the player anymore. And so I am curious to see if this contract turns into more of a starting opportunity for Inter Miami, especially in that Redondo role, because I don't know what Redondo has done for a long time to earn opportunities over Cremaschi, but
it's also a big sign of confidence from the staff that they've given him this contract. And I would assume that this comes with an expectation of him to start more games, or at least be the linchpin of that midfield going forward. So I don't know if that's going to happen this season, but next season I can definitely see that happening.
Okay, man. Anything else about this game that you want to talk about? We getting out a little early this time, but I think that was by design. Anything else about this game you want to talk about?
No, it was a slightly frustrating game. I thought it could have gone both ways. We could definitely have won that game. We could definitely have lost that game. But at the end of the day, a draw is a draw. In MLS, away games are always difficult. And the fact that we've gotten so used to winning away from home is a good sign. And we should be a little disappointed that we didn't get full 3 points. But we move on from this, man. Next game is going to be tough. New York City FC. The worst team to go up against, because Inter Miami's bogeyman on stats is actually NYC. So we'll find out how we perform, and don't be surprised if we come out quite frustrated from that game. But I predicted a 7-2, man. I'm going to keep on it.
Yeah, I think that's actually, it becomes a big game because you want to get back into positive momentum for that final stretch. And it's a team that we haven't beat. We've only beaten once in our entire history. So getting that win would be really nice.
And we haven't scored that many goals against them. So
yes. Guys, just FYI, the game is early on Saturday. It's 2 p.m. Eastern time. So it is not going to be the normal 7:30. Make your plans, set your calendar accordingly. We will do a pregame show. I think Saur is going to be at the game, so I'm not exactly sure what the pregame show will look like, but we will be there for you guys, and I hope you guys are there with us. But other than that, we will see you guys next time. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you guys on Saturday. Till next time.